All right, we want to look at section 2-4 in Trig, which is going to deal with what we talk about cubic polynomials, factoring cubic polynomials. So the first question is, what do you think of when I say the word cubic? What does cubic mean? Usually you're probably thinking of like, oh, 2 cubed. Okay, when I think of cubic, I think of like a cubic yard, which is like how they sometimes deliver mulch to your house in cubic yards, which is a yard by yard by yard. It's a very large amount. But cubic is literally meaning sort of like 3 dimensions or third. Okay? So let's talk about the cube of these numbers. What would the cubic of 1 be? 1 cubed would be what? 1 times 1 times 1, 1. For 2, 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2, 8. 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3, 27, and so forth, 64, 125, 216. Oops, a little far. Not that we really care. You get like, what, 343, 512, 729, and 1,000. Okay, you get all these numbers. I don't expect you to really know those. You should have an idea of sort of 1 through 5. Okay, you should recognize those a little bit. So when we look at a polynomial that's a binomial, that means 2 terms are pieces, okay, and both pieces are cubic, we can factor it in a special way. So if we look at x cubed plus 8, I recognize 8 as one of those cubes. That was a 2 cubed, wasn't it? Okay. So we're going to actually factor this when we have a cubic like this. And again, 2 pieces. The first piece is a cubic. The second piece is a cubic. All right. We're going to break it down into a binomial times a trinomial. It's going to be a 2-piece times a 3-piece. And actually, when you multiply it through, you'll end up with an answer of 2 pieces. All right, let me break that down a little bit. So here's how we do this. The first piece, the binomial piece, is simply we're going to take the cubic root of each one of those. So what's the cubic root of x cubed? Well, that's just simply an x. What about the cubic root of 8? In other words, what multiplies together 3 times by itself to give you 8? Well, that's a 2 times 2 times 2, so that's 2. There's going to be our binomial piece. That's always going to be multiplied by a trinomial piece. Okay. Now the trinomial piece, this is where we come into this idea of what I say is sofas. Okay, S-O-F-A-S. And that's just simply a mnemonic device to help us do this, to remember what we're putting. So the first S, what does that stand for? The first S wants you to take this piece and square it. So S stands for square. So we're going to square the first piece. Now we need a symbol here. We need either a plus or a minus sign. O stands for the opposite of what you had. Well, you had an addition. So what is the opposite of that? Subtraction. So it's going to be a subtraction sign there. F. F stands for fuse these 2 pieces of this binomial together. Fuse them together. Smack them together. So it's just a 2 times x when I fuse them together. A stands for always add. So it's going to be an addition sign there. And then S, just like the first S was square this piece, that S stands for square the second piece. So basically, x plus 2 times that entire x squared minus 2x plus 4 gives you that answer right there. Because what's going to happen is a lot of pieces are going to cancel out. You can go ahead and distribute that x through to the 3, distribute the 2 through to all those 3. You're going to see everybody cancels out other than an x cubed and a plus 8. Let's look at another one. Let's say we have x cubed minus 1,000. I recognize 1,000 as a 10 times 10 times 10. So step 1, get the binomial, the cubic root of each. Well, the cubic root of x cubed is x. Cubic root of 1,000 is 10. So there's the binomial. What about the trinomial piece now that it's being multiplied by? S-O-F-A-S. Sofas. The first S stands for square your first piece. So we're going to take this first piece, this X, and we're going to square it. What is X times X? That's X squared. O stands for the opposite sign. We were subtracting here in the problem, so it's going to be an addition. It's always the opposite. If that right there is a minus, you're going to put a plus there. If it's a plus, you're going to put a minus. Again, O simply stands for opposite. All right, F. F stands for fuse the two pieces together. X and 10 fused together is 10x. We've already determined the symbol in front. Sometimes kids look at this and go, oh, isn't it a negative 10x? No, you're just taking the number and that other piece, which is going to be a variable, and just putting them together. A stands for always add. That's always going to be an addition sign there. And then S stands for square that second piece. Just like the first S stood for square the first piece, we're squaring the second piece. 10 times 10, 100. This binomial times that trinomial ends up giving you x cubed minus 1,000. Okay, this works when both the two pieces are perfect cubes. What about this? Okay, follow doing the same thing. What is the cubic root of 8x cubed? Well, what times what times what gave us 8? That was a 2. And then for the x, it was an x. Notice a 2x times 2x times 2x is 8x cubed. For 27, that's a what? 3. So I now have my binomial. To get the trinomial piece, again, SOFAs, S-O-F-A-S. I'm going to square my first piece. I'm always, now do remember, you're always referring back to this binomial right here when you're doing this. So I square my first piece, 2x times 2x, that's 4x squared. O, opposite sign, that's subtraction, so I'm going to use addition. F, fuse, so I'm going to fuse 2x and 3 together. Putting them together gives you 6x. When you fuse them, you're multiplying them together. A, always add, so I put an addition. S, square that final piece, 3 times 3, 9. Boom, there's my answer. Okay. One more problem. You're following the same thing every time. So we have quite a bit here. No big deal. I take the cubic root of that. Well, what times what's 27? That's a 3. And the x is just an x because x times x times x gives you the x cubed. Plus, because there's a plus sign there, 8. What multiplied together give me 8? 2 times 2 times 2. And for y was y. So it's a 3x plus 2y. That's your binomial. Now, S-O-F-A-S, SOFAs. That's how I try to remember what I'm going to get for my trinomial. S, square the first piece. 3x times 3x is 9x squared. Okay, not 9x, but 3x times 3x is 9x squared. O, opposite. This was addition, so I do subtraction. F, fuse. So I'm going to take 3x and 2y, and I'm going to multiply them together. That gives me 6xy. A stands for always add. And then S, square the final piece. 2y times 2y, 4y squared. There we have it. Okay, this is section 4, chapter 2 in Trig, and it is basically you're using the idea of SOFAs. Okay, it's for factoring cubic polynomials. Hope that helped you.